Good afternoon. Today, I am going to be teaching you how to make a Timeslice image. I'm going to go through all the gear you need, the settings you need, how to actually capture the images, and then how to edit it into a Timeslice image. This image right here is what we will be editing today. Super excited for it. It's pouring outside. It's hot in here. Let's go. Whew, that's delicious. Okay, first things first, what is a Timeslice image? So a Timeslice image is a bunch of images thrown together or sliced together into one image. I do this over an extended period of time, so usually about an hour or 2 hours of continuous shooting, and then I slice those images together to make one image. This image that I just showed you, which was the one we will be editing today, is a mixture of 37 different images. So I'll be putting that all together and making one image. So let's talk about gear. The gear you'll need to do a Timeslice image is 1, obviously a camera. 2, you'll need a sturdy tripod. 3, a handy dandy shutter remote. This one is the Neewer brand. I'm not sure how to really pronounce it. Neewer. Amazon brand, very cheap to buy. I would highly recommend this cheap remote over a Canon remote. Canon remotes are very expensive. This one works just fine. I haven't had any issues with it. And then you'll need a hot beverage, like a coffee or a tea. When doing these Timeslice images, you have to shoot them over an extended period of time, so between 1 to 2 hours. I find that I get a little cold standing outside for 2 hours. Unless you live somewhere hot, which is great, but I live up in Canada, so I don't get that luxury. Even during the summertime, it can get cold standing outside at sunset or sunrise for 2 hours. So bring a hot beverage. Also, I would recommend bringing some form of entertainment, a book, a board game, a friend. Once you set up the shutter remote, you don't have to touch anything for the 2 hours that you are shooting. So it can be a little boring. So let's talk gear. So first of all, let's look at the shutter remote. So the shutter remote, if you haven't used one before, is a remote control that plugs directly into the side of your camera and allows you to capture photos with the push of this button here. This helps reduce any camera shake because it has the long cable. You don't actually have to push the button. So it's great if you are doing landscape photography and you want very sharp images, like I talked about in the previous video, how to get sharper images, which I will link up here. But what we are doing with the shutter remote is we are setting up a timer, so every set amount of time, it will grab a photo. So this shutter remote has this long cable, which has the end here, has a bunch of different adapters. So this one is for this camera that I have right now. For other cameras, you would plug in different adapters. All you do is on the side of your camera here, you'll see this little image, or it will say remote. Open that little flap, and then the remote plugs directly into the camera. So now, when you turn on the camera and turn on the remote, every time you push this button, it will grab a photo. So a shutter remote is very beneficial if you are doing landscape photography and want sharp images. Just not having to touch the shutter button will eliminate a lot of camera shake and get sharper images for you. That's also very important if you want to try to capture lightning strikes or if you're shooting fireworks. So on this shutter remote, there's 3 different settings. There's a delay, there's long, and then there's interval. For the Timeslice shots, we want to go over to interval, which is what is on now, and then it gives you these times. So this is the amount of time between each shot. So if you want to do, for instance, I'll just select set, scroll over, and if you want 3 seconds between each shot, you will select this one and put it up to 3 seconds. There's seconds over on the right hand side, there's minutes in the middle, and then hours on the end. So let's just go 3 seconds between each shot. Then you'll scroll over to the N logo, and that is the number of shots that you want to capture. If you just want to capture unlimited shots until you stop it, you can just set it to these 3 dots, 3 dashes. That means it will go forever until you push stop. But for this instance, just to show you, I will select 3 shots. So it will grab 3 shots, 3 seconds between each shot. All you have to do is push the timer start. Grab 1, you'll see it counts down 3 seconds. And there's the 3 shots with 3 seconds in between each. So in getting set up for Timeslice images, you want to figure out how many shots you want to do and the length of time. When I first started doing Timeslice images, I think I started doing an interval of a minute between each shot. I found that this was a little too much, and a lot of the images together looked very similar to each other. You want a variety of different images, or you want drastic changes between each image to make the best photo. Don't get me wrong, you can toss together in 100 different photos in one image, like this one right here, which I will show you. This one was 110 images all stacked into one image. It looks pretty cool, but I think a better effect would be to do with less images and more of a drastic change between each image. So when doing Timeslice images, I like to do between 2 and 4 minutes between each shot to make sure that each image will be drastically different from the previous one. Keep in mind, if you do more images than you want, you can always delete images to make more of a drastic photo, like I did with this one. So like I told you, I took over 100 images. If I want to condense it down to 37 images, I just deleted images that I didn't want. So I find Timeslice images are best to capture at either sunrise or sunset, where the sky drastically changes from bright to dark or dark to bright. Creates a lot more contrast in the image. I do between 1 to 2 hours of shooting. Really depends on how many slices you want in the image, and also the location. Is the sun going to be setting behind mountains, or do you have a clear view of the horizon? So let's talk composition. You want to make sure you spend a good amount of time location scouting before the day that you want to do the Timeslice on. This will help eliminate any stress or frustration you have running around trying to find a composition before the light is gone. So when thinking about composition, I like to put a subject close to camera in the foreground and then have something else in the background for these time slices. The one we're looking at today, that isn't the case. This is just a time slice of downtown Vancouver. But there's this image here, which I also did a time slice of. Again, downtown Vancouver, but it has Science World as the subject in the foreground. I think this is a really nice composition. Really draws the viewer's eye to that building, the Science World there, then back into downtown Vancouver, and then towards the sunset. So it pays to spend a little bit of time beforehand to find a perfect composition before the day of shooting your time slice. When I go to shoot my time slices, I arrive about an hour and a half before sunset, just so that gives me some time to get set up, compose my composition, and get all my settings correct. Once you start shooting, you really don't want to change any settings or move the camera at all, as this will drastically change or affect the final results of the photo. It'll also make your life a lot easier if all the photos are composed the exact same position. This is why it's extremely important to get all the settings right before you start shooting. So in saying that, let's jump into the settings. So these are the settings you want to set up in your camera before you start shooting. So first things first, you want to take your camera and adjust the shooting mode from manual to aperture priority. The reason we do this is because we do not want the aperture to change, but we want the camera to automatically adjust the shutter speed to ensure that we get the exact same exposure every shot. Then you want to set your aperture. So if you want a blurred background with the subject in focus, then you will lower your aperture. However, I like to have everything as sharp as possible, so I will choose between f10 and f13. So set your aperture to whatever you would like it to be. As you will see, now with my aperture set, if I hold down the focus button, you'll see the camera changing the shutter speed automatically to maintain this level of exposure. In speaking to that, you will take your wheel here, and when you rotate the wheel, you will see this little notch go up and down. That is your exposure level. 0 being what the camera thinks is perfectly focused. I like to shoot at about -1. I find that is a good exposure and it doesn't blow out the sky. So once that is set, then the camera will automatically adjust its shutter speed to maintain that level of exposure. That is the first step. Next, you want to make sure that you change the white balance to any one of these, but you want to make sure it's anything but auto white balance. The reason for that is because you want each individual image to be the exact same white balance. If you set automatic white balance, there's a chance that halfway through shooting, the camera will change the amount of white balance. So I like to set it to shade. That's what I shoot on mostly, and you're good. Next, before you start shooting, you do want to remember, after the camera is focused, you want to switch off autofocus. This will make sure that the camera isn't struggling to focus and doesn't focus wrong halfway through, and then you get a bunch of blurry images. So making sure your image is focused on what you want it to be focused on, switching autofocus off will make your life a lot easier. This is also good. I found when it is getting darker at night, cameras do struggle to find focus. So if you can easily focus while it's light out and then shut it off so the camera doesn't have to worry about it, it will make your life a lot less stressful. So because we are shooting for an hour or 2 hours, you want to make sure you get the most out of your battery. So I like to go into the menu settings and go under image review and just turn that off so that the LCD screen isn't going to turn on for 4 seconds and show you that image that you just took. This will improve battery life. Also, you want to make sure you do have a fully charged battery in the camera. So even if it is 1 bar down, put a fully charged battery in before you start shooting. So one thing that's very important that I forgot to mention earlier in regards to shutter speed and the interval time, just know that when it is getting darker out, the camera is automatically going to adjust the shutter speed, and sometimes it can get down to 30 seconds in order to maintain that exposure level. So if you do set an interval time of 20 seconds between each shot, just know that it will throw off your images if the camera is trying to grab a 30-second exposure and you are trying to grab a 20 seconds between each photo. It'll throw everything off and you won't get exactly 20 seconds between every photo. So that's basically all you have to do in order to set up for time slices. Next step is putting your camera obviously on a tripod, making sure the composition is correct, and then setting up the remote like we went through before. I would honestly recommend just doing unlimited shots. You can stop it at any point. Don't put a number of set shots in there, because if you want to go longer or if sunset takes a little bit longer than you expected, it's a lot harder to stop and start the timer again. So just do unlimited shots and you can stop it whenever. Still delicious. Okay. Next, let's bring all of the images into Lightroom and then into Photoshop. I'll take you through the process of editing them. So, what do we got here? So these are the 37 photos that I chose to do. You don't have to, doesn't have to be 37. Like I said, when I shot this image, it was 110 images. So I cut them down into 37 images. I could delete more, but doesn't really matter how many you have. I find that the less amount of images are better. Okay, first things first, you are going to select the first image and you are going to adjust it how you like. Keep in mind you are going to apply these adjustments to all of the images. So I like to kind of go back and forth to make sure that they don't look a little wonky. So what I like to do first when I'm editing my images is I scroll down and I click Enable Profile Corrections and Remove Chromatic Aberration. That creates a lot of light on the edges, but I like to add it back a little because I like a little vignetting. Then I will scroll up to the top. I will add a little bit of exposure here, brighten it up a bit, lower the highlights to make the sky come out a little, raise the shadows so you can see those buildings, raise the whites, raise the blacks a little bit, and it's already looking better. I like very colorful images, so I'm going to raise the vibrancy quite a bit. And I will scroll down here to sharpness. I'll add a good amount of sharpening, just to make sure that this image looks sharp. I like to go down to masking and hold Option on max and just slide this over so that it is only sharpening the city. If you don't do this, then it will apply sharpening to the entire image, which you can see it will create this, it will add the sky, it'll add more noise into the sky. So I don't want that. I just want the sharpening on the city. So I just drag this across until the city isn't, or the city is lit up and the sky isn't. And that's good there. Looks great. Scroll back up here. I think I want it a little brighter. And then I want it a little warmer. That's good there. A little magenta. That's pretty good there. I will scroll down to the tone curve. So tone curve, I like to add a little bit of an S curve. I raise up the blacks here, make it a little bit softer. And I usually go to the middle. We'll drop this a little. Here we will go up. Kind of just play around to see what you would like. Kind of like that. So that looks pretty good there. Just a slight little S curve. And then I like to go down to calibration. I like to drop the blue primary quite a bit here. You can see the difference that makes. Makes the blues a little bit more blue and a little bit more pink. So that's a good start. You will see, so what I like to do now actually is I will go over to one of these mid images. See, this is very blue, and I'll see how that looks by selecting the two. Select this one, select one of these images, and I will sync everything. And that is pretty blue, which is kind of cool. It's just because I dropped the blue primary quite a bit. So I think I might go back to, I'll undo that. Do the syncing. And I will go back to the first image. And I will adjust that so I won't drop the blue primary as low. And I will add, in the color grading, I'm going to add a little bit of red in the shadows. just to make those buildings a little more rosy. And then I think highlights also. I'm going to add a little bit of red, pink. Bump this up a little. Yeah, I really like that look. And then I'll go back and try it again with one of these mid photos. Yeah. And you can play around with the mid image here and adjust these settings just to know. You just want to make sure that all of the images get set that way. You don't want to be setting one image versus the other one, or else it will look off. So if you make any changes to this one, I would recommend kind of resetting and then go back, make the changes on the first image, and then sync it all with with all the images. Let's back this off a little. Yeah, I like that. I think I might add a little bit more in shadows. Okay. Go back to this image. And reset that. So that's the final look that I want to go with. I will select all of the images and sync all of them to apply that effect or those settings to all of the images. Wait for that to load. See how they look in the dark images. Yeah, it looks really neat. Yeah, I like that. I like adding a little bit more color. That's before, that's after. Great. So I am happy with that. So once these Lightroom effects or adjustments are done, then what we will do is select all of the images again, and you will right click, selected, and you will do edit in, and you'll go open as layers in Photoshop. Depending on your computer, this might take a little bit of time. Mine might load quickly, it might not, because with screen recording, it is working pretty hard here. But you can just take a break. So, first of all, you want to slide this up. Take out this, and you want this. You want to see all of these layers. So this is it. Okay, then what you're going to do is you're going to go into View here and do New Guide Layout. And you'll do the number of columns, which will be 37, because we have 37 photos. And you will take off the rows because we don't care about the rows. Select OK. That creates 37 different cuts, so that is what it will look like once you get all the images in there. So now how to do that. Okay, so this is what you're going to do. So now you have these 37 different line guides. So you're going to select the first layer, go to the selection tool, and you are just going to select the first sliver of an image. Then you're gonna go down here to masking, add a layer mask, boom. So now just that first sliver is showing this first layer and everything else is masked to the below image or the below layer. Next, you're gonna go down to the second one and you're going to select to the second line, everything to the second line, do the exact same process, add a layer mask, and it is going to only reveal the 2 slivers and mask out everything else. Repeat the process until you are done. I will fast forward this video because this is boring to watch. Okay, now we are done. You don't have to put a mask on the base layer because that is the base layer and it will just show through on the last sliver. You can go up to here, go to view, and go to clear guides to get rid of those guides, and there is the final image. All right, that is it. That is how you make a time slice image. Very fun to do, very unique images. I think they look really cool. So yeah, spend some time practicing with time slicing. Let me know how you make out. See you on the next video.